Women's ministry is failing you. If you've ever felt like women's ministry keeps you inspired but never actually changed, you're not imagining it. Welcome to Hold the Fluff, the podcast for Christian women who are done with surface level faith and are ready to grow into spiritual maturity. I'm your host, McKenzie, your long distance mentor and sister in the faith. And around here, we trade fluff for truth, comfort for conviction, and feelings for faithfulness. So grab your coffee and stay a while. Okay, for the first episode of the Hold the Fluff podcast, I thought it was important to touch on some of the reasons that I believe women's ministry is failing us as Christian women today, mainly in America. I'm based in America. Keep that in mind. I'm also not saying that every women's ministry everywhere is doing these things or not doing a great job. This is more so based on my personal firsthand experiences after 10 plus years leading Christian women in the Christian women's ministry space. I have seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, the behind the scenes, the things they don't want you to know, so much more. I've been trained, I've been not trained. I have experienced a large array of things. I've lived in multiple states. I've been a part of different churches, visited churches with friends. I love women's ministry, so I've joined group after group after group because I just love being around other Christian women. This is all from what I have seen over a very long period of time. I'm not saying that this is the end all be all of a women's ministry everywhere, always, it only looks like this. I'm not saying that. So please, if you attend a women's ministry that is run really well and doesn't necessarily look how I'm going to touch on, great, awesome, duplicate it, start your own, continue it, become a leader, etc. Jot down what's working really well within that, why you love it so much, why you think it's ran so well, and help make that the normal. Because for me, what I've seen over an array of situations across states, across churches, is not good. It needs to be changed, and that's the whole point of these conversations, is that I want to share kind of my viewpoints, opinions, experiences, perspective, with the hopes that things change. And so I am very passionate about women's ministry. I'm not trying to put it down or get rid of it or anything like that. I love it so much. I just want to see it get better. I think that it is failing Christian women today. With all of that said, I think the most important thing is to start by kind of defining what I mean when I say women's ministry, because I'm a big word person. I love definitions. So I do have some notes off to the side. I've got some bullet point notes to help kind of guide me as I record this episode. So if you see me looking off to the side, if you're watching on YouTube, that is what's happening. But when looking up women's ministry definition on Google, the Google definition says, women's ministry is a church-based effort to spiritually nurture women by providing a supportive, gender-specific space for Bible study, prayer, discipleship, and fellowship, helping them grow in their faith, discover their purpose, and serve God and their communities through tailored programs like mentorship, counseling, and outreach. Okay, so women's ministry actually wasn't a thing before the late 1970s and early 1980s. So seeing as how we're in 2026, it is fairly not new, but not like super old either. It's not even 100 years old, right? So this is kind of a developing concept, even still really like something that can still really evolve and mature and grow. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll go ahead and link a Lifeway women's article that talks about the history of women's ministry if you're interested in diving more into that. But when I say women's ministry, I'm talking about a couple different things. It's really this big overarching thing. But first off, women's ministry in the local church. So this is going to be what it sounds like. You go to church, you have a women's ministry. Maybe your women's ministry meets once a month or once a week, right? It might look like Wednesday morning Bible studies at your church. It might look like a Thursday night life group that's all women, etc., right? It's these smaller kind of women-specific groups offered by your local church. But outside of the local church, when I say women's ministry, I am also talking about women's conferences. I have gone to so many conferences over the years. I love them. I love being around Christian women and just worshiping, learning, praising together. But I do think that a lot of women's conferences lean very much towards the self-help realm of things, with a couple Bible verses sprinkled in, instead of the actual, let's develop mature Christian women who are going to go out into the world type of things. And so I think there are definitely changes that can be made amongst women's ministry in the local church and amongst women's ministry in women's conferences. And lastly, I am touching on social media influence. So when you look at the Christian women's space amongst social media, there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of women making content. There are a lot of big names that produce a lot of things and offer a lot of things. And I think a lot of them do a poor job really helping Christian women grow. I think it's more so making them inspired, but not actually growing. To me, it seems like women are engaging with it. They're getting a daily dose of encouragement or inspiration, but they're not actually being deeply changed. And unfortunately, why I want to talk about this is because I believe that Christian women are leaning heavily into women's ministry to learn how to be a mature Christian. They're signing up, expecting to learn, to grow, to be challenged, to see how other Christian women are doing this thing called Christianity and living this out, and hopefully gonna get some answers to, questions they may be having and so on. And I feel like they go ready for growth and they go ready for depth, and they are met with just surface level feel good faith that's really not challenging them. There's a lot of things that I've seen be accepted in these circles, allowed, sin encouraged, and even coddled. And I want to talk about it. I think God has put it on my heart to talk about these types of things. I have unique experiences being firsthand for over a decade, leading Christian women, leading groups, building up leaders, being the leader of leaders, and so much more. And it is very near and dear to my heart to talk about these things and hopefully provide change. So let's jump into 3 ways that I believe women's ministry in America today is failing you, the Christian woman. So the first one is that it is not pointing you to the Bible. When you join these groups, it is filled with studies that typically don't help you grow, and they don't help you live in obedience. They keep you stuck on the surface. Now, I know that if you love these studies and you sign up for them, you may have not liked what I just said, and that's totally fine. I myself love studies like this. I love signing up for Women's Bible Study. I love getting together and going through books. I've done Beth Moore studies, Kay Arthur studies, Priscilla Shirer studies. I've done so many. And at a time in my walk, I loved them. I just soaked up as many as I could, signed up for as many as I could. I loved them so much. And for a while, it felt like I was learning a lot. It felt like I was taking away a lot because I am someone who is a stickler for homework. I don't ever show up to group without my homework done. I do all of it. I'm always ready to talk, answer the questions, feel prepared, which is not necessarily what you have to do. If you don't have your homework done and you are going to these groups, still show up. Please, still go. Still, take in what is shared, answer where you can, and so on. But I personally am that type of personality where I need to have my homework completely finished. And I used to really think I was learning a lot. But as I matured in my faith, I realized that a lot of these studies are very surface level. They keep you on the surface. They don't teach you how to grow, how to dig in for yourself. A lot of times it's based on stories from the person who wrote the study. A lot of times it's fill in the blank studies, and you're not actually learning how to go into scripture and get that takeaway yourself. You're actually just filling in the blanks for the interpretation and takeaway that author, that Bible study teacher wants you to have, which is fine. They are trying to teach a certain something and they're guiding you that direction, and they serve a purpose. It's like, I'm not trying to hate on Bible studies. I'm not saying not to do a Bible study workbook or not, I'm nothing against the women who wrote them. Just in general, I want to talk about how they are structured and what you're actually taking away from them, because you're really not taking away a whole lot. You're maybe reading a verse and then filling in a blank or answering kind of a question. You're not learning how to go and dig into the Bible for yourself and take out your own interpretations. You're not learning how to then pass that on to your children, how to teach someone what you learned, or how to really engage in a conversation about that topic. You're learning just how to fill in a blank. And you're also not learning how to defend the faith, how to dig into apologetics, how to know what you believe and why you believe it, right? So these serve a purpose, but I think in the long term of things, they keep you very stuck on the surface of your faith, and they don't help you mature deeply as a Christian woman. They feel good. They come off encouraging. You feel like you've done something all week long, but is what you're doing actually taking you from point A to point Z instead of keeping you at point D, E, F, etc., right? So that's all I'm trying to say, is that it's not very good at pointing you to the Bible. It's mostly pointing you to what that specific teacher wants you to take away, wants to teach you, wants you to see, and so on. It's not necessarily what God wants to say to you, right? If you were in that Bible studying the same thing with an actual method for studying the Bible, God might speak to you in an entirely different way than how that certain Bible study is pushing you. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that if you love these Bible studies, you can see that my heart is not to tear them down. I love them. I've done many of them. I'll do more in the future. They serve a purpose, but it's important that we know where their limit ends, right? Another way that I think that these groups are not pointing you to the Bible is that oftentimes they are filled with book studies where they're reading a book, going through a book again and again and again. It's one, and not a book of the Bible, like a normal book, like a novel, chapters, etc. And yes, sometimes these are Christian-based books, which is fine. Again, none of these things are inherently bad. None of these things should be avoided or anything. But I just think that women's ministry leans and relies on them far too much, and they are not producing mature Christians. It doesn't matter how many Christian books you read. If you're not reading the Bible, it can only do so much. So I think that women's ministry just relies too heavily on going through books together instead of actually getting in the Bible. And another way that it's not pointing you to the Bible is that maybe there's a verse that's involved or a couple verses, right? But what you're missing out on typically in these women's ministry settings is context. You're not studying a whole chapter, a whole book of the Bible at once. You're not really in God's words. You're studying someone else's words, whether that's a authored kind of book, right? Like a novel kind of book, that's someone else's words. Or whether it's even a Bible study that is guiding you through something and you're filling in the blanks, those are someone else's words. You're not spending a whole lot of time in God's word itself, and you're really not getting that whole context. And that's so important to spiritual maturity, to Christian growth, is understanding the context and being able to make connections from one part of the Bible to another without someone telling you them, to know it for yourself, not because someone told you, flip to this chapter and verse. Okay, now flip back. Okay, see how they connect. You want to get to a place where you know it for yourself, where you can see those connections come together. So that is my first way that I think it's failing people, is that it's not pointing you to the Bible enough, I guess, could be a caveat here. Okay, the second way that I believe women's ministry is failing Christian women today is that it's not producing mature Christians. And I know that I've already made this statement a couple times in a couple ways, but let's talk specifically about this aspect. So for one, I think that it's too focused on making women feel comfortable. I have been in so many groups where feelings are top priority. And that's kind of the next thing I have on here, actually jumped, that it prioritizes feelings above the Bible. So it seeks to make women comfortable, which of course we want women to be comfortable, right? When we have these groups, lead these groups, are a part of these groups, we want women to feel comfortable. We want them to feel welcome. We want them to feel a part of the group, and we want them to come back. We want to talk about Jesus with them. But when we are too focused on their comfortability, then we are not challenging them. We are not pushing them. We are not giving them depth. We are just leaving them comfortable, and we are not called to leave people comfortable. The iron sharpens iron aspect of faith, of walking with other believers, is not comfortable. If you dig in to what that looks like for iron to sharpen iron, it is a friction-focused experience. It is not comfortable. It is not cozy. It is not cute, but it is absolutely necessary. And this can be done lovingly, respectfully, etc. But it is important that as we're walking with other believers, that we're sharpening others and they're sharpening us. And if that is not happening, that is not good for everybody's faith involved. And I see too many group scenarios, too many women's ministry scenarios where that is not happening. Comfort, acceptance, making everyone feel loved and okay, and, thank you for sharing, great job. That's not the right focus, right? If someone shares something about the sin that they're in, or a wrong belief, or something that goes against true doctrine and theology, it is our responsibility as other Christians to respond in a loving way, to point them to Jesus, to point them to the Bible, to, show them their error in theology and doctrine, to discuss it together, to dig in together, and so on. Not to just smile and nod and say, thanks for sharing, and then move on, right? We don't want to leave women where they are. We want to pull them with us. We want to mature. We want to go forward. We want to be taught by those that have gone before us, right? The older women teach the younger women. We want that to be happening, and it's just not happening. Another way that it's not producing mature Christians is that leaders simply aren't leading, they're staying quiet. And I just kind of touched on this, and I have an episode planned in the upcoming weeks where I'm going to dig into this aspect a little bit more. But ultimately, I am not seeing leaders lead. As I just mentioned, where it's important that we speak up, that we respond, that we point them towards the Bible, towards Jesus, towards the correct theology. It's so the leader is the one who leads this, right? They are the one who directs this response. They often should be the first response. They should be the example to show how to lovingly respond, how to lead well, how to bring someone along, right? Jesus is not leaving us where we were when we met Jesus. And so we shouldn't be in these groups to stay where we are. We should be bringing each other along. And the leader is the core person to do that, to lead that, to create that kind of environment, and they just aren't doing it. I see too many leaders sit back, say nothing. I've even seen a leader tell someone, oh, it's okay. God knows your heart. Just stay in that sin you're in. It's okay. And it's outright chosen disobedience, direct sin, walking in disobedience. And I've watched a leader tell that person, it's okay. God knows your heart, and move on to the next thing, the next person, which is not what a good leadership response would be. And so it's just not producing mature Christians if leaders aren't leading. And if the leader isn't a mature Christian themselves, then they're not going to know how to lead someone else towards maturity. And so this is a big, big, big issue. And I don't think it all falls on the blame of the leader, which is something I'll get into in that future episode as well. But they're just not leading, and that's a problem. And the last thing I want to touch on for number 2 is that it's not producing mature Christians because they're not being brought along and trained up in how to live the Christian life. And I'm not going to go too much into that because I think a lot of the other stuff I said really kind of shines a light on that statement. But if you're only in these Bible studies where you're filling in the blank, if you're only reading through someone's book, like if you're not really challenging and growing people and bringing them along, then you're not training them up. You're not teaching them. If there's no system for walking them through how to do things, and that they know that this is an environment where they can ask questions and get answers and get help, and they're going to be brought along because that's the type of environment, then they're not being brought along. They're not maturing. They're just showing up, doing the study, staying the same, sometimes even maybe getting worse because becoming more lukewarm as they go, yet they think and believe that they're doing all the right steps, that they're connected, that they're involved. And yes, that is important. That is an element of it. But if groups are keeping women where they are, or worse, producing comfortable, lukewarm Christians because they're attending that group, that is also a problem, and those women are not maturing. Okay, and the third thing that I want to touch on today is that it's not producing leaders. Women's ministry is not producing other women's ministry leaders. I see this all the time, but people are staying in their groups because they're comfortable. They're staying in the groups because they love the people in the group, because they like their time there, because they're afraid to lead, because no one's pushing them to lead, no one's asking them to lead, no one's helping them learn how to lead. And I see it in pretty much every group I've ever been like a member of. I see where leaders will talk to the group about how they need more leaders, or how they should consider leading, or how the church would like more people to lead groups so that more people can get involved in groups. And so much of the time, I want to say like 99% of the time, but I want to be like fair as well, so probably not that high. But so much of the time, people respond with, nope, not me. I don't want to leave this group. I don't want to leave these people. I don't want to leave my friends, which is really part of what it comes down to, right? And the leader just says, okay, well, just think about it. Instead of the leader creating an environment where it is the cool thing to do, to like be in the group, to grow and to lead and to move on to your own group, where leaders actually pull someone in and say, hey, come co-lead with me. Hey, I see a leader in you. Like, hey, I want to really grow this thing that I see in you, and and help you mature into this position and then send you out. Leaders should be creating an environment where that is the normal, and not where they're having people stay in their group for years or however long, right? If that group is not producing other leaders and other groups, in my humble opinion, that is a failing women's ministry group, because they are not maturing Christian women to go out and lead, to step up, to step into what the Bible has for them, which is, Titus 2. It doesn't mean everyone needs to be a leader by far, but everyone should be training up and teaching up Christian women, one-on-one mentorship, definitely. But sometimes, these leadership roles are a piece of that, and you can really make an impact in Christian women's lives and share the good news and pass on what God has done in your life and the knowledge that you have. I'm not saying that every person everywhere needs to be a women's ministry leader or a group leader or conference runner or anything like that, but I am saying that if you have a group for years and no other leaders come out of it, that is not okay. You should be raising up leaders who start other groups, who go out, who are focused on creating other groups for more and more women to get involved, because a group can only handle so many women. Oftentimes groups are limited by a certain number that the church chooses, and then if they are full, they are full. And so many women are being left out because other women won't step up into leadership. And it's not because they can't or they want to be good at it. It's because nobody is pulling them that direction. Leaders are not focused on creating leaders. They mention it for the church, and then that's it. They're not growing them. And part of that is maybe because they don't know how. And I understand that as well. And I also think that that's an issue, and an issue that kind of comes from the top of the church, right? Because if we're talking about individual, like women's ministry groups, the majority of this is going to be happening in a local church. Let's just go ahead and recap really quick the 3 ways that I believe women's ministry today in America is failing you, the Christian woman, is that it's not pointing you to the Bible enough, right? We added a caveat there. It's not producing mature Christians, and it's not producing leaders. And kind of a bonus thought that I want to throw out there, it's not necessarily a 4th way per se. This does happen, and it's not necessarily fully controllable, especially by the leader. But I just want to make sure that I mention the cliques that happen inside of these groups that leaders do tend to allow. Yes, people will know each other from outside the group. Absolutely. Friends join these groups together. They join a group and they tell friends about it, or they tell their sister, their sister-in-law, their mom, etc., right? Oftentimes, people are coming to a group together because they feel more comfortable joining a group if they're not joining it all by themselves, right? So a lot of times they will be bringing someone with them that they feel safe with, that they already know, that they can sit with, etc., right? This is going to happen, and that's absolutely okay. But something that a leader wants to do is be creating the environment of one big group with no cliques in it, so that all the people in the group feel welcome and included in. And unfortunately, this is just not happening either. These cliques take over these groups. New people join the group, and they feel like it is just impossible to get into that group, to break through that clique, to be accepted, to be friends with those people. And I know for one, I have personally experienced this. I've moved to a new state where I knew nobody, and one of the ways that I tried to get involved and meet people and make friends and make connections was to join groups like this. And it was just has proven a couple different times in my life so hard to make friends with other Christian women that I meet in the group, because they have their friends, they have their clique, and they're not looking for any additional friends. And they're not open, they're not welcoming, they don't invite you into their life outside of the group. They just show up, see you at group, and that is it. And I think that that is very, very sad, because one thing we want to be doing as Christians is living life together and going through life together and creating a welcome culture, a sisterhood, a one big group kind of feel. And these cliques make it really, really difficult for new people to fold in and to feel welcome. And like I said, to some degree, it's absolutely out of the leader's control and completely inevitable. It is going to happen. But a lot of times what I see is leaders allowing it to happen. Like, they're not even trying to work against it. They're not even trying to include everybody and prevent that type of environment and culture. They're just kind of saying, it is what it is, right? They're all friends. It is what it is. That's just what it is. I hope people don't feel a certain way. And yet they never really do anything about it. And they can only do so much. I fully understand that. Okay, this is where I'm going to hit the pause button. I have so much more to say on this topic, and I hope you will stick around to hear me share my thoughts and experiences and ways that I think it can be improved and so much more on Hold the Fluff podcast. I am really just tired of all of the surface level fluff that we're given, the inspiration that we're given, and we're just not growing. And that is really the heart of this podcast. So I hope that you will hit that subscribe button, hit that follow, and listen to the podcast. But for now, I just want to say thanks for joining me today on Hold the Fluff. If this episode challenged or encouraged you, please share it with another woman who's hungry for more depth and honest conversations just like this one. And if you want more resources for growing in your faith, living it out, leading a group, or mentoring others well, head to sheimitates.com. And of course, be sure to join me on YouTube for weekly Bible study videos. Until next time, imitate Jesus and be a woman worth imitating. Bye.